Alright, so I've been wanting to make one of these videos for a while. I have a hard time looking at myself. I have a hard time hearing myself talk. So, kind of making a video and then having to upload it and possibly edit it is right up that alley with things that I'm uncomfortable doing. I'm transgender. I'm a transgender female, and if it matters, sexuality is pansexual. Granted, I really don't have an interest in cisgendered men, meaning men who were born men and feel they are men. I've been through some things where I cannot trust them. That being said, I've felt this way for probably about 20 years. I am 27 now, and growing up, I was ridiculed pretty regularly if I didn't ask. What? Go to hell. No phone calls right now. I was pretty regularly ridiculed if I didn't act masculine in some way. One of those ways was I'd stand with my hands on my hips, which is beyond me because I've seen other guys stand with their hands on their hips. The other was that the way I'd get when I was upset. Instead of getting pouty, I'd get very pissy. I'd walk with a shoulder sway, and I've just always felt more comfortable playing with girls than I did with boys, but, you're a boy, you gotta play with little boys, and yada yada yada. So, when I first wanted to come out was probably closer to, like, 12 years old, when I was first starting to understand what was going on. And in my family, being traditional Catholic, conservatives, I did not feel safe doing that. And in a lot of ways, probably rightfully so. 15 years ago, it was a lot different world. And while I'm out now to all of them, and for the most part they're supportive, I'm pretty positive 15 years ago that would have not have been possible. When I was 14, I started dealing deeply with depression and became suicidal. High school and puberty just were not things that I enjoyed. I had a full beard by the time I was 11 or 12. I had to shave back then, probably weekly, I think. I don't know. There's no pictures in my house of me past about the age of 10 or 11. I can't look at them. Now, yeah, I was heavy set, but at the same time, I couldn't look in the mirror. I still struggle to look in the mirror. And I'm only 227 pounds. I have a double chin that I'm noticing in the camera, but hey, what you gonna do? So when I was 15, I ended up in Laurelwood, which is a hospital out here. I live about 30 miles east of Cleveland. And there I went through a partial hospitalization program, and one of the girls that I befriended there was the first person to ever put a word on what it was I was feeling. The thing was, I was so embarrassed that I never even brought it up with counselors. And I was planning on actually coming out after the one night when they had our parents come in. And my dad looked at me as we were walking out and said, "See, there are a lot more people more fucked up than you." And that was about as emotionally detached as he ever seemed to me. And from then on, I didn't even want to visit him on the weekends and stuff. And because, he had to cheat, and he's supposed to be a role model. So, going through high school, my thought became, well, I know I'm not straight, I know I'm not a male, so I'll marry someone who's open-minded, that After we start a family, then I'll transition. After high school, that changed a lot. One, I really started to hate relationships. Uh, the sexual aspect of a romantic relationship was the most uncomfortable part for me. And as soon as it happened, I couldn't be close to the person because I didn't see me. I didn't see the person that they saw, anyways. I didn't feel that that was real. I didn't feel that the connections were real. And I couldn't rationalize it in my mind. I was living out in North Olmsted, which is about 50 miles away from here, with my grandparents. I'd moved out there to get a job in plumbing. Plumbing is one of the few careers that, in the long run, I was ever actually able to perform and keep, besides being probably fired 100 times and quitting 200 more. That's what happens when you work with one of your close friends, as I found out. It was also one of the only jobs where a lot of my other issues that bother me in traditional settings don't. If you're obsessive compulsive in plumbing, great. Shit looks perfect. People like it. You get paid more. You're obsessive compulsive in a produce area trying to stack bananas. It sucks. Takes you forever. You cannot manage to stack them perfectly. It's just not possible, and trying to get your brain to understand that is really hard. So the group of friends that I created while I was out there probably started growing more around 2011, 2010. Or, no, actually, no. No, more like 2008, 2009. That's when I met my friend Alan and Dustin and Chandler and a couple others, and they were the first group of friends I've ever had where I looked right at them and I said, I know I'm not straight, I know I'm not a male, and they're like, cool, you know, alright, you know, doesn't change, you know, who you are as a person, so, as in personality wise, and that was the first time I felt any sort of acceptance. And when I got kicked out, eventually, the final time in 2012, I had to move back in with my mother out in Paynesville. And this place has always been a tomb to me. I've never felt comfortable around here because the few friends that I did come out to ostracized me, and at least they were nice enough to not go around telling the entire school or anything. That has changed, in that since living here for a few years, I got a job and I loved it. It was a produce department at a store, and work was always my love. Work was always the way for me to hide. Work was always the way for me to not deal with all the other shit. And I had a counselor that I couldn't drop my guards around. I'm very good at putting up a wall. Really ought to be a mason. And as the stress started getting to me with work, so did the stress of everything I was hiding from my post-traumatic stress disorder due to a couple sexual trauma incidents throughout my life. And just the general anxiety, and in the middle of January began a streak of insomnia, in which it basically culminated March 28th in midday during my day at work, in which I was not sleeping more than an hour a night. I was constantly just doing anything to keep myself from sleep, and it got to the point where I wasn't feeling tired either. And it allowed me to escape flashbacks that were paralyzing, to the point that I would watch the clock for hours as I'd feel the trauma being on repeat the entire time. But in that midday, I suffered an anxiety attack. My heart was coming out of my chest, and I was sweating to the point I was white. and I was starting to throw things because I couldn't deal with the anger of everything else going on in addition to what was going on that day at work. And a friend came over and got me out of there, and that's when I broke down, and that's when everything started coming out. And for the first time in my life, I was unable to hide everything. At the hospital later that night, I came out to my mother. I also told her some of the issues with the sexual trauma. I didn't go into details because no good will come of it. And she's not really been supportive. Accepting, well, okay, I guess she's been supportive, but she's not been really accepting. Ever since I came out to her that day, I have been called by my birth name in almost every conversation, every line of every sentence that she says. And it's really irritating. She did call me by Amy for the first time the other day to wake me up, but that was apparently the only purpose it served to her, was to get my attention. I don't understand it. You know, parents say that they don't care, what their kid is as long as they're, happy, healthy. But, I guess when reality comes knocking, they do have an opinion on it. My dad and I, we've been talking through text, talking on the phone occasionally. For the most part, I don't think we've ever really talked about what I'm going through other than to find out that he doesn't agree with it, but he accepts me. And, okay, I guess that's all I can ask for. Was looking forward to going to the Cleveland Pride Festival today, and, in Ohio, if you've never been here, wait 5 minutes, the weather will change to shit. And I'm trying to fight, fixating on the darkness at the point, and you might notice I'm sitting in a car. Automobiles are about the only place I've ever felt safe to be myself, which sucks. Video games, another big hobby. My channel's probably not going to be strictly about transgender issues, because I'm not strictly about transgender issues. I enjoy working on cars, I enjoy working on houses. There will be probably a video posted of a kitchen that I built almost single-handedly, where I did everything from redoing the framing of the back wall that fell down when I took out a window, to doing the insulation, to doing the weatherproofing, to doing the drywall, and then the taping and mudding, because I hired someone who was incapable of telling me, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm taking this 90-minute and I'm mixing it with so much water that 8 hours later it's going to still be soaking wet. After that, did the tile, took down all the old cabinets, sanded them down to the bare wood, did 3 coats of stain, 2 coats of poly, everything I learned in woodshop was put to use. Everything I learned from doing plumbing for years was put to use. Everything that I've ever learned was put to use. And the only thing I couldn't really complete exclusively by myself would have been hanging them, because of, having to have one hand drive the drill. And also the countertop. We hired some company to do that. But it was a great way for me to at least relieve my stress then, and which I don't have that outlet now. I just have Call of Duty, which anyone who's ever played knows that it doesn't exactly always calm you down. Sometimes it gets downright fucking irritating. Guess I'm gonna have to put a content warning. I do cuss a lot. I enjoy to cuss. Making up words when I'm raging out on Call of Duty are one of my favorite things. I've been called the Tourette's guy at some points. I am not your typical, I don't think there is actually a typical transgender woman, but I have no problem laughing at myself. I never have. Self-deprecation is something that kind of comes natural in my family. We're all sarcastic, and we all fight with each other constantly. Might notice I'm just wearing a regular t-shirt right now. I'm not dressed in my clothes. As soon as stubble shows up, I have a very hard time looking in the mirror. And I'm the type of person that I need to look in a mirror in order to shave, so I don't have that hand-eye coordination. I shave, if I kept up on it, I'd have to shave every single day, and not using an electric razor. An electric razor will not get it. It doesn't cut it. It makes me break out even more in different skin rashes. And think. That's about all I can really think of to talk about at the moment. It's raining. It's really crappy here. I am somebody that most of my energy comes from a sunny day, so this sucks. I don't know what I'm going to be doing the rest of the day. Uploading this video will be one. Being that it's at about 16 minutes right now, it'll probably take a while. I'm not going to cut this one just because the way I think and the way I talk, this is how I just always am. If I cut out where I'm pondering something for a few seconds trying to come up with the next thought, then you're not going to see me. And my hope is that there will be, maybe some other possible transgender women out there that are still presenting male to society because they feel that they're so masculine in their interests that for them to come out would be, silly, or that they just couldn't do it. And I'm going to tell you, no, that's bullshit. I'm still completely interested in home construction. I'm still completely interested in working on cars. I'm still completely interested in video games. I rage like a girl who games, not like guys. I'll probably post some videos of my gameplay on there. I'm sure Malicious Combat will love that, seeing as I don't really post anything for them, and that is technically one of my clans, even though the clan I'm in is not with them. I actually had an interest in making remotes for people with dexterity issues, since I am one of those, and I bought a popular custom gaming controller from a different company that I'm not gonna say because I guess I can't. They're garbage. $250. Thumbstick broke in 40 days. Yeah, I could have returned it for a warranty if I didn't end up in the hospital when I was actually able to pay for the shipping. And then the warranty ran out. I'm struggling with a lot of the gender dysphoria. My voice is deep, which is a big thing for me. Hearing the sound of my own voice is physically repulsive. Actually causes me to panic. How's a squirrel doing? Oh, the squirrel just bouncing through the puddle repeatedly. Good for him, I guess. I've tried heightening it, and the only times I've ever been told that I sounded feminine by a friend that I used to have that I no longer have, and, only 3 months, so I guess it wasn't a waste, is when I'm, like, taken by something, that has nothing to do with conversation. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be one of the most expensive parts of my life. I live in a state where I don't even have discrimination protection. And on top of which, I don't have, I only have Medicaid, so they're only going to pay for hormone replacement therapy. And, yeah, so I will be sure to post another video soon when I can think of what to talk about.